Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you're here for our G.R.O.W workshop. Get ready for opportunities that work. Today, we're going to be talking about grant writing primarily, but also a variety of ways that small businesses can attract and apply for funding. I am your presenter, Nikki Watkins. And of course, I come with a plethora of experience when it comes to grant writing. Not only do I have a law degree, not only do I have a background in social work, but I also have my own business, which is why I'm bringing this training to you today. Here at Hopewell Global, we specialize in serving those who serve others. If we could be a service to you with your grant writing or contract proposal writing needs, we would be happy to help. We also specialize in strategic planning, development, and so I do want to mention, because this training is for small businesses, of course, I will be speaking from that standpoint and perspective as an attorney, but also as a business owner. However, I do know that a lot of these principles will relate to nonprofit entities. And so in that arena, I'll be putting on my social work hat, because that's a lot of what many social workers do, work within that nonprofit arena. And also, I started a nonprofit myself about 27 years ago that is still going strong in Indianapolis, Indiana, Peace Learning Center. So I want to shout them out because they are doing some amazing work in Indiana. And I've worked here in Miami in nonprofits, one in particular that's been around for 88 years. So I do have some experience in this arena. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. I want to say today our focus is on helping you to find, write, and secure grant money. Before we get started on that, of course, we need to have a general idea of the 4 primary ways that small businesses get grant money. But I want to ask you, how many of you are actually representing for-profit entities, small businesses? Any nonprofits in the room? Okay, great. So when we get to the end in terms of questions, if you want to know how this relates to the nonprofit entity for some of these areas, I'd be happy to share that with you. All right, so moving right along to our outcomes here for today, I first want to talk a little bit about the 4 primary ways that small businesses are able to acquire funds outside of selling whatever product that they have. The first, of course, are grants, which is money you don't have to pay, but it is money that has to be used for a specific type of work that you write the grant for. So that's very important to know, and that's why we're going to spend the most time on grants, because it is sort of a nuanced way of writing. It's a combination of creative writing to express what you do in a manner that is unique to the community with technical writing, making sure that you meet the needs that are expressed in the application. The second is, of course, contracts. You know, when you sell a defined product or service, this is what I'm selling, this is the contract. An example I like to give is retainers. If you have a client that you provide a service to on a regular basis, rather than doing one-off projects, it might be more lucrative for you and the client, more beneficial if you have a monthly structure set up on an annual basis where they pay a set amount and you provide a set amount of service for a certain number of hours. That's a great way to establish contracts that generate consistent income. The third, of course, is sponsorships. Now, sponsorships are a little tricky because sponsorships are really a give and get relationship. It's all about what are you providing to the community that this sponsoring corporation or entity want to gravitate toward or benefit from. And usually it's the audience that you serve. So if you serve a certain audience, regardless if it's a product or actual service that you're giving, there are people that want to market to that group or those groups. And so sponsorships come in to basically allow you to provide your service to your audience in a way that lets them also piggyback on that and say, we support this service and would also like to have your business for us. And last but not least, a very popular one, especially down here in South Florida, are pitch competitions. And most people think of pitch competitions as just, you know, you go up, you real quick pitch what you're doing, kind of like your elevator speech, and then you get the money and you go. I wish it were that simple. Really, you need to plan for pitch competitions. You really need to polish what your elevator speech is, be able to answer questions very quickly on the spot, and very succinctly and clearly express why this one shot of money will benefit the community. That's really what the pitch is about. You're pitching to that entity that's providing funds or those groups of individuals, how their $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 or more, and that one amount is going to make the largest impact in the community that they want to touch. And so it's not just about your elevator speech. Your elevator speech is more about what you do, right? But in a pitch competition, it's about what you do for others and how the money that they're going to provide can be extended to the greatest, the highest level. They want to reach the greatest audience they can. Now, how do you choose which one of these would be the best way to go about? Well, this is where your notes come in. The first thing is, if they being whomever you're applying for the funds, want outcomes and a public benefit especially, it's a grant. So for the grant that we're going to work on together at the end of this training, you have to be thinking, what is the public benefit that they're looking for and how do I actually meet that need? If they, again, that entity that's providing funding, need to get something in specific done and you hold a scope meaning your scope of work. What exactly are you promising to do during this contract? It is a contract that you want to set up. If that same entity or another entity wants your audience, remember when I talked about the sponsorship? They want a moment to place their logo so people connect what you're doing to what they have. If that's the case, then you want a sponsorship. And that's there at the bottom. So if you can win on story and traction and you need some quick money, that's where pitch comes in. Because the story and the traction is saying, the story is this is what I have to offer, and the traction is this is how your money can make this happen very quickly. All right, thank you. So let's move right along to the next, because I want to get to the nitty-gritty of actually writing some grants. So we're going to talk about briefly the pros and cons of these, just so that you're aware when you're thinking, what do I use in what situation? What would be the benefit and what would be kind of the negative to going that route? And of course, just a little starter checklist as you're going through these, what you'll need ultimately to produce that product. So the first, of course, are your grants. The pro is it's non-repayable, right? You get the money, you don't necessarily have to pay it back. It builds credibility. If somebody's willing to give you any amount of dollars that says that you're a credible source and or you're a credible service person or your product is credible. But the con is it's very restricted. It's restricted to what you said you're going to use the money for. Sometimes grants come slowly, which is why it's a huge benefit if you have one that gets turned over in a few weeks or within 30 days. And there's a reporting load, meaning you have deliverables. Deliverables are specific actions or specific plan or some type of actual outcome that you have to produce to show that you use the money the way you said you would and to also show that the money had an impact, okay? So that's the con of having a grant that people sometimes forget. They get the money and they say, oh my gosh, I have all this paperwork. That's part of grant writing. The second one is contracting. Of course, the pro is that it's predictable revenue. If you have a contract for a year and you say you're going to pay me $5,000 every year to do this product or to provide this service or to provide this product, then that's what they're supposed to pay and that's what you're supposed to do. If for some reason there's a breach of contract, maybe they don't pay or you don't provide the service or product, then you have the legal remedy to go about to get your funds. And in that legal remedy, you often will have court costs attached that you can also get covered if, in fact, there was a breach of contract. And so the benefit, of course, is repeatable. You know you're going to get your money, but the downside is there's a tight compliance. You have to do what you say you're going to do, just as they have to pay what they've promised to pay. And so your cash flow timing can sometimes be off if they don't, do it in the manner that they have promised or they breached their contract. Or vice versa. If you're depending on your product to come in from someplace else in order to get it to them, manufacturing is an issue, then that also causes some stress and tension. So just be aware of that. For sponsorships, of course, they're flexible because you're working with a certain entity that want to work with you for business. And of course, it's relationship driven because how did they find out about you? How did they determine they want to work with you? All of that is based on how you interact with them. And there's usually some in-kind perks thrown in. So in addition to them piggybacking off of what you do, they may throw in something free for you. A great example is when you have people who sell trips. If you are selling trips or you're organizing trips, oftentimes those who purchase them from you, they have to pay the fee that you establish. But then the entity that's sponsoring you may throw a free trip in for you, all right? This is often done with cruise ships. They'll often throw a free cruise in for you if you're able to attract 10 or more people. The last one is pitch competitions. Obviously, visibility plus the cash or service that you've promised or that they have promised to you is a great benefit. The feedback they give you directly after the competition, all great things, but the win rate is low. Usually there is a first, second, or third. Sometimes there's only a first, and you never know how many people are going to enter the competition. So be aware of that. Also, it takes a little prep time. It's not you jump up there, like I said, and you give your spiel. You kind of have to be prepared to also answer questions on the spot. And lastly, there's entry rules that are often attached. Sometimes they want what you're going to say in a PowerPoint, 3 slides maybe, beforehand. Sometimes they don't want that, but you have to provide your registration information about your business. So just be prepared to make sure you're aligning what you do in a manner that also aligns with the rules or the application. And so if you're going about doing this, you're going to say, hey, well, you know, how do I know what I need to submit for these 4 things? So when I'm thinking about where I want to put most of my energies or my funding, the grants, they're going to look for a clear problem or solution, outcomes, a budget, evaluation, and partners. Those 5 things. We're going to go back to that later, so don't worry about having that down right now. But just know these are a huge part of that narrative that you're going to submit. The next item is your contract. It's always going to include your scope of work. It's always going to include your pricing and insurance. It's always going to include references and your delivery plan. How are you going to get that service to them or that product to them? And then your sponsorships, it's always going to include an audience profile because they want to know who that you sell to or you service that they can benefit. There's always going to be some type of metrics, meaning we need to hit this number in order to provide this for you. Going back to my example about those who plan trips, you got to have at least 10 people purchase before we give you the free trip. There are tiered benefits. Let's say, for instance, you sell 50 trips, then they may give you 3 vacations to different places, or they may come with additional funding benefits. And of course, there's a calendar involved in sponsorship because it's often during different times of the year where their sales may be low or your sales may be high, etc. So just be aware of that. Sponsorships do kind of ebb and flow in terms of what's involved, depending on your market. And last but not least, if you're doing a pitch, generally 8 to 12 slides is what you want to aim for. Even if you don't present your slides in a PowerPoint or similar fashion to your audience, you want to make sure you still know those 8 to 10 in your head so that you can share quickly, concisely, and also be able to answer questions within the time frame they set. Most pitch competitions run between 3 to 5 minutes in what they give you to share whatever it is that you're selling. So that's why you have to know it and be succinct, but you also have to leave a little time for questions and answers, okay? All right, so let's jump into the fun of this. Where is the money? I want you to turn to your first handout number 2, which says, where is the money? And we're going to talk a little bit about where that money is. You notice here, you'll see the first 3, terms and loans, lines of credit, grants, small business grants, and revenue from contracts. And I kind of give you, an explanation of what that includes, right? So we don't have to go back over that. That's just to give you an idea of the typical funding that's available for small businesses. But I want to give you something more specific. I want to tell you about some grants that are actually available right here in South Florida that can apply to your business. So one huge source of grant funding that people often forget about are your general Florida state grants for small businesses and nonprofits. For instance, the humanities department, they give funding away all the time, particularly for cultural and arts related events and or services and or products. So I want to give you a couple examples where there's funding available. The Enterprise Florida Export Trade Grants. If you Google that, you will find that they often give between $4,500 and $10,000 for funding as it relates to enterprise in Florida. There's another one. It's called the Enterprise Florida Export Trade Grant. There's also research grants. This is great if you have a product that you're selling, even a product that involves a service. So when I say that, I'm referring to health and beauty. Let's say, for instance, you have makeup that you're selling, right? So the product is actually your makeup that you're selling. However, there's another element to the makeup. You want to test to make sure that that makeup is going to be good for different skin types, right? Different hues of color of skin. And so you may sign up for a grant, a research grant with the federal government, who's also trying to test pigmentation or trying to test certain elements that exist within your makeup that they're trying to find out how it impacts skin types for other reasons. So they will partner up with you to provide funding where they can utilize your product to help with their research. And in exchange for access to your product or your market, they will pay you to assist with the research. Now, the benefit to you is not just dollars. You also get the benefit of saying, this is research, this is cruelty-free, this is beneficial because it's vegan. Whatever the outcomes of their research, you also get to share with your consumers about how your product can benefit them in that way as well. So it's a win-win. There also happens to be a lot of dollars when it comes to the SBIR or STTR, which stands for your research. I put it that way because a lot of times when I go through the whole explanation, it can be a little tricky. But your research grants essentially are going to come with, usually they start around 100,000 or so, because you have to be able to pay a scientist or someone from a medical background that can actually do the testing, lab work, etc. But oftentimes they reach into the millions. For instance, your National Science Foundation, their grants usually start at $1 million plus, and they're studying it from a scientific perspective. But then you also have your Health Foundation, National Institute of Health, and theirs often start at $1 million plus because they're looking from the health perspective. So don't limit yourself, especially if you have a product. For services, this also applies, more so in services that impact people from a societal level. I see a lot of the service research grants when it comes to, incarceration, dealing with youth, how we can shape the behaviors of individuals in our society to be more beneficial to our communities. Those also come with research dollars. So just be mindful of all the funding for contracts or research or grants. They may not always come for where you think. Sometimes there's other options. All right, so I want to give you one more example of a Florida state grant that everyone can consider looking for. You can always Google the National Association for the Self-Employment Growth Grants, and they give up to $4,000 on a regular basis for people who become a member of their association. So that's another little nugget there for you. Yes, it's the National Association for the Self-Employment or Self-Employed Growth Grants. All right, so the next one you see on your list is the Miami-Dade County and Miami Cities grants. Now there's several opportunities that we benefit from living here in South Florida when it comes to county grants. Many entities, even in the state of Florida, they don't have that benefit. So we should take advantage of it, right? I'm going to give you a few in particular that you should be aware of. The first is Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust. They offer a sizable grant every year. They just did one for $5,000 for businesses that are less than 3 years old and $7,500 for those who are more than 3 years old. And they have grants that they provide every year. So every year, you can look forward to that grant. Now, once you get a grant, you can't, reapply for 2 years, but after 2 to 3 years, you could apply as you're expanding your business. And that's specifically to benefit small businesses, but they also provide funds to nonprofits. Another one is the capacity building grant that comes from the Miami Foundation. And their focus is, of course, trying to strengthen small businesses and nonprofits right here in our communities throughout Miami. And so they have funds that are as small as $5,000 to $10,000 and go up to loans that are forgiven as long as you hire someone in Miami, up to $200,000 plus. So you want to make sure you check out their website. Every year, throughout the year, they're offering opportunities for funding. Another one would be the Miami-Dade Innovation Authority Startup Challenge. Now, they offer $300,000 plus in funding. $300,000 is actually the minimum. Of course, the competition is steep, but if you look them up early and you plan ahead, your chances of getting that $300,000 could be, you could win that or you could earn that money. Miami-Dade Innovation Authority Startup Challenge. And of course, we have our Miami Downtown Development Authority. It's a property improvement grant program. So if you have a brick and mortar, if you have a physical location, that's a wonderful way to enhance your location or repair your location if there's some things that need to be repaired through their funding as well. Again, that's the Miami Downtown Development Authority. It's its own separate funding source. The last two that I want to mention are ones that people are pretty familiar with in South Florida, but we don't always take advantage of. Many times these grants go, with several dollars unused, and that would be the mom and pop small business grants that most people forget that exist. Sometimes those grants go for up to $10,000. District 3 just did theirs this year for $10,000 for those who live in that district. District 5 also offers a sizable amount. So look at the district that you live in. I know District 8 did $5,000. Wherever you are, they range from $2,500 to $10,000 that they're giving for small businesses. And the applications aren't as difficult as some of the other grant applications. And of course, they don't come with the same amount of deliverables. They're there to benefit the business. So if you can demonstrate to them why your business would be more successful if you had their support and funding, while your business is an asset to the community, then they will provide the funding for you to grow your business in that way. And last but not least, your Miami-Dade County general grants. And you can get that just from going to miamidade.gov. If you go to the miamidade.gov page, go to global/grants. If you go to global/grants.page, you will see a listing of all kinds of general grants that are offered right here in Miami-Dade County, and they refresh those pages on a monthly basis. All right, let's move on down to your federal grants that are relevant to Miami businesses. So I want to start with, and I do have at the end, I told you all about the bonus, I do have a couple more grants that I want to share that are specific to Miami as it relates to Miami-Dade County, but I'm going to save those for the end after the camera, just for you all who are here.
So you won't leave early?
What'd you say?
We won't leave early.
You won't leave early. All righty. Thank you for that. So when it comes to the federal grants that are relevant to Miami, two of the most important grants that we receive dollars right here in our city include the National Institute of Health's Funding Opportunity Grant. It's for seed money to help businesses who can tie what they're doing to some research need. Remember I talked about those research dollars? This is a great way to get those funds by going through National Institute of Health's seed.nih.gov funding. And then, of course, there's the Program for Technology and Innovation that NASA offers. You'd be surprised what NASA could use from our community. They sell things from dried ice cream all the way to, if you're providing soaps or lotions, they're like the government. The government doesn't make anything. They don't produce anything. They provide services to you that benefit you. So you tell them what you need, and they purchase from you what they can offer to others. So if you're looking to, expand your contract base and you have a product to sell, consider marketing to the government. They have lots of dollars because they buy nothing, they make nothing. And then of course, grants.gov. That is your hub for all things federal grants. Grants.gov is required by the federal government to be that source where even if that grant is put out for just a couple weeks or days, it has to show up in the grants.gov portal, okay? It's part of the transparency that our nation, has for our citizens. All right, so let's look at some alternatives to grants, like your incubators, your accelerators, your microloans, your vendor opportunities. I just want to mention this because sometimes we forget. Accelerators are basically co-working spaces that partner mentorship and resources and opportunities to start up businesses, right? They're similar to, a incubator site where you have a small space where you can grow till you get to a certain point where you can go out on your own. Similar project, just incubator sites don't usually come with mentoring, and accelerator programs do. I'm mentioning those because oftentimes these programs come with dollars. For instance, right now, SEO, PW, CRA, and Overtown Business Resource Center have collaborated to provide funding to the Overtown community. That is because of the incubator program that they have, right? And so if you are a part of that community, their incubator site, then you know firsthand before everyone else that this grant is coming out. That's the benefit if you are a startup or a small business of being connected to community. Programs like Branches, programs like the Miami Foundation's programs, these programs are meant to provide networking so that you can interact with other peers who are also small business owners, but also to provide resources that will help you develop, scale up as a business, and grow further into our community. All right, so we're gonna stop there for now. And like I said, at the end, I'll revisit. I have 3 others that I just want to share with you all. But I wanted to give you a chance to find out where the money is on a general scale. If you're interested in specific grants that will benefit your business, that's where Hopewell Global comes in. That's what we do on a regular basis. We help you find funding, we help you write the funding, the applications for that funding, and we help you secure funding that meet your needs. All right, so let's go on to the next thing that you see in your packet. It says myths and red flags. This is really just to be more of a reminder. A lot of times people fall into the kind of the situation where they will take on funding or funding opportunities that they think have big rewards, and they end up kind of being sort of a fluke, or it's not what you thought it would be. You end up putting money in, you didn't get much out, if you got anything at all. So I want to talk briefly about some red flags, just so none of you all kind of get taken advantage of when you're looking for funding. There's a couple things I want to mention here as it relates to that, but I don't want to go over what's in your handout because I'm sure you all can read that for yourself when it comes to myths, etc. But I do want to mention, if you have to pay to apply for a grant, not membership, but apply specifically for funding, then it's probably a hoax. Because if they're giving funding to you, they realize you need the funding. They're not going to charge you for what you already need. The other thing is guaranteed awards. Guaranteed awards almost never exist. Now I say almost because very few things are absolute, always and never, right? You may find one needle in a haystack. But typically speaking, and I would say 99% of the time, if you're going to get an award, regardless if that's a contract where you said you're going to provide something, if it's a grant that you don't have to pay back, or even a sponsorship, you are going to have to give something for those funds. Even if that something is in a sponsorship situation where they get to place their logo on your product, or they share their logo with the services that you're offering to the community. So that is still a give and get situation. If there is no get for what you give, if there is no give for what you get, then there is probably no contract, there's probably no grant, there's probably no sponsorship available. And last but not least, if you go to find a grant and the grant is kind of vague, it doesn't give you all the details, you find yourself asking questions, and there's no strings attached, meaning they're gonna give you all this money and they're not really requiring a lot, I want you to be wary. That almost never exists also. Again, 99% of the time, if there's no strings attached, there's probably no strings attached. Meaning, if there's no strings attached to what you have to do, there's probably no strings attached to what they say they're gonna give, all right? So, what do we learn from this? Money does not equal magic, all right? Make sure you look for the grant myths. You make sure you're aware of how people take advantage and generate income for themselves without actually helping the consumer that they've promised to help. So make sure you take time to look at those myths and red flags and those quick vetting checklists that's at the bottom of your handout, just to give you an idea of when I'm looking for a grant, I want to be aware of these 5 things. Where's the source? Where is it coming from? Is this transparent? Is there a cost involved? Is there a paper trail? And of course, who's the contact if I have questions? Those will always lead you to where the funding is going to come from and what they actually are requesting in that give or get relationship. All right, so let's keep on moving to our next handout. Who's grant ready in here? Who's ready to get some money? All right, so let's see if you're actually ready. I want you to take about 5 minutes, your handout that says Grant Readiness Scorecard. Take 5 minutes to either indicate a 0 if you're not ready for the item that's indicated, a 1 if you have that in progress, or a 2 if you're ready to go in that area. So the first one is, have you clearly defined the problem or opportunity that you provide to the community? Do we need more of what you're selling? Do we need more of what you're offering? If we do, how do you provide that more? If you figure that out, you've determined, you can tell someone how you provide more, then give yourself a 2, you're ready. If you're still trying to figure out, then say 1. It's in progress, but it's not done. And if you haven't even thought about it, give yourself a 0. Not a 0 because you're failing, a 0 because you have more room to grow in that area. And we're gonna talk at the finish of this about how to be grant ready if you aren't just yet. So go ahead and spend a moment to figure out your scorecard. Don't worry about the by who and the date. the due date. We're going to figure that out in the end together. And now we get to have some fun. You've gone through that initial learning phase. We're going to have you partner up with someone. You can partner up with someone at your table if that makes it easier for you, or someone near your table. And you're going to actually share with them your final score and whether or not you think you're actually grant ready. And if you're not, that's okay. I want you to kind of discuss with your partner what you think you might need to do. That's where your questions at the end of this training will come in handy, because this is the opportunity to learn not only what you need to do, but how you can do it. This is your opportunity to ask someone that does this on a regular basis, how can I grow my business in this area? So if you want to go ahead and partner up with someone, spend a couple minutes. First, identify what is your overall score. Add up all your numbers and come up with your final score.
That's not bad.
Raise your hand if you scored 20 or more. If you scored 20 or more, raise your hand. All right, so you are grant ready. If you did not score 20 or more, you're not quite grant ready, all right? The areas that you have zeros and ones need to be strengthened before you can actually apply for a grant. The nice thing is, these are things that can actually be done pretty quickly. There's nothing on this list that should take you more than 6 months to accomplish. And we're gonna actually work on your capability statement today. So you will walk out of here with a part of what you need to be grant ready, including your grant database, some information that you need that you can use for every grant that you apply for, and build kind of a toolbox so that when the next grant comes up, you pull right from your toolbox what you already have saved, and you just freshen it up a bit, align it to whatever else they're asking for, and go about your business. So every time you write, it should take you less and less time to prepare the applications for your grants. And if you decide you don't want to write, you know what to look for when someone else is writing for you, because you know what goes in a grant. All right, so, yes?
What do you mean by equity and inclusion plan? I'm sort of thinking, is that people?
It can be people, it can be products. So I'll just say, since you started, you name people. Let's say you have an audience of individuals that you are specifically marketing to. Well, are you including those who are from communities that fall outside of that? Are you inclusive in how you're providing your sales to the community? Are you considering, for instance, ADA, the American with Disabilities Act? And sometimes disabilities are unseen. It can be neurodivergence. It can be, an ADHD or something that you can't physically see, but definitely exists.
Okay.
So do you have a plan for including the community at large? For making sure you're marketing to the entire market that's within your industry, or the segment that you're serving within your industry? Do you have a plan for that? Where you saw owner and date on your list, listed as by who and do, that's your owner and date. If you have a 0 or a 1, identify who else outside of you could help you with that area. It could be myself, it could be someone you know, it could be someone that may not necessarily know a lot about it, but they can give you feedback. So an example, we're getting ready to switch to our company capability statements. I'm going to walk you through a template of what should be in it, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to put it together in a way that it could be lined up and written for a grant, okay? If you've written a capability statement, but you're not so sure about it, the best person to give you feedback is someone who knows nothing about a capability statement. Why? Because if it's clear to someone who doesn't know, then it'll be even more clear to someone that does, all right? We want to make it so concise and clearly written that there's no question about what you need, what you give, and what you're asking for, all right? So let's switch gears to our capability statement. Now I'm going to start off by asking you to turn to your handout that says Company Capability Statement Template. And I'm just going to mention a couple things before we look at that template. The first thing is, your problem or need statement only needs to be 2 or 3 sentences long. You're not looking to write a whole dissertation about what you're providing to the community. Remember, a lot of these funders don't have a lot of time to figure out what you're trying to ask them for. They just want to know. They want you to tell them, this is what I give to the community. What solution are you offering? Or what do you offer to help benefit others? Put it in bullet points. You don't have to have a whole fancy essay about what you're offering. Just give them the 1, 2, 3. I provide cakes. I provide natural coconut items to the community. I provide personal benefit. I provide an inspiration to become more of who you are and to be more secure in who you are. I provide candles, or I provide so to enhance the home, to enhance your senses. I provide haircuts to people who want to look sharp when they're going to the business world. I even provide haircuts to those who can't afford them. And I just write them off because I want to support the community. I always participate in haircuts for back to school. And I just write those off because I care. And I would like you to support me in caring. See what I'm saying? These are clear needs and clear solutions that you offer to the community. And they don't have to be done in an essay. Your outcomes and your proof, 1 or 2 bullets. What happens as a result of what I do? Simple as that. Where's the proof that I can show that what I do actually helps? And then differentiators. This is simply saying, how are you unique? What makes you different from the other person that does exactly what you do? Maybe you do it in a way that makes people feel like you care more. Maybe your audience is a group of individuals who have special needs that you yourself also have. Maybe you're a single mom and you're providing a service in a way that single moms can relate to. That's your differentiator. Whatever it is that makes you you, that makes you unique, differentiates you from the competition. And lastly, who can they call to say that they've benefited from what you do? Or what links do you have to others that can vouch for your credibility? That's how you finish off your capability statement. And it doesn't always have to be an outside source. For instance, you could say, I write grants. I have a law degree. So I understand all the legal jargon that goes into the contracts of grants, right? Obviously, if I'm a legal beagle, I have great writing skills, or at least I should. And those are linkages that tell people that I can be trusted with what I'm telling you I provide. That's what the contacts and links do. They simply say, I can be trusted. You can count on me to provide the service and or product at the level that I promised to provide it. So I want to do a very brief activity after we go through our template where you're actually going to write your own capability statements, and I'm going to interview one of you. I'm going to interview you to find out how strong your capability statement is. And we're going to capture that interview so you can go back and look for yourself to find out, what can I do to strengthen that? How can I have said that or thought through that in a way that would enhance my capability statement? And then for those others who don't know quite how, to write, or they have questions, they can kind of get an idea of real time what that looks like. So go to your handout that says Company Capability Statement Template. Now, a capability statement is simply a one-page snapshot that tells the buyer or funder, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I need. There are 7 things that should be asked. Think of it kind of like your business resume, all right? A short, tailored capture of who you are as a company. First thing is asking or telling who you are. What's your company name? What's your company contact information? If I wanted to call you for your service or your product, who would I call? What number would I call? What email would I go to? What location would I have to visit? What do you do well? Meaning, what is the core service or product that you offer? If you had to say it's one thing that you do, and you could only talk about the one, what's that one thing that you're going to speak of first? That's your core service or your core product. You might do 10 things, but what's that one thing that people tend to buy the most? The next thing is, why are you credible? Is it your education? Is it your experience? Is it your results? You may not have any education in the area. Think about Gayle King. She's on CBS every morning. She doesn't have a journalism degree, but she has visited the School of Hard Knocks. So she's learned the hard way for what to do and what not to do when she's in front of an audience every morning and she's trying to inspire people to go about their day. That is experience that's credible. It could also be a past project or outcome, or maybe a testimonial. Maybe you've heard your whole life, girl, you need to be doing ABC. And so you can tell others, I've heard my whole life that I should be doing this, and now I'm doing it. People might want to know why others have been saying you should be doing this for the last 20, 30, or 40 years. That makes you credible. But what makes you different from others? If someone's doing something similar to what you're doing, If they are selling something that's similar, why should someone buy from you and not them? That differentiator matters. Because if I have $1 million to give away and I can only give it to one person, I want to know why you're the person I should give it to versus this person, or why you are more credible than this person. You are your best salesperson. We sell ourselves every day. Whatever we chose to wear when we came in is the image we want people to know about us, right? And so that's what makes you different. My grandmother used to say, every homeless person doesn't look the same on the street. Some look a little more put together than others. It's the same thing. All right, how does someone hire you for the service or product you provide? That's extremely important. If I'm going to give you money, I want to know, how do other people utilize your services or your products? How do I know that you have revenue coming in on a regular basis? Where are you getting that money from? And then last but not least, what do you need? What are you asking for? And how is what you're asking for going to benefit someone other than you? Oftentimes when we're in business, we think about, well, I'm in business to make money. I want to help my family. I want to have a better lifestyle, right? But it also does something for those who are outside of you. What is that thing that it benefits others? How? How do people buying your soap feel better about that soap? For those who are, loyal to their brand, why are they loyal? Dove, for instance, has one of the most loyal followings. Why are people so loyal to Dove? There's 1,000 other soap makers out in the industry. Some of them, Dove, have even said that they're better, but they keep their loyal customer base regardless. Is it because maybe they don't have a lot of additives in their soaps? Is it because their scent is very general and very user-friendly? Is it because they have, a market that will respond to wherever region they're in? Sometimes Dove soap is $2 a bottle, sometimes it's $7 a bottle. It depends on where you buy it from. They always market to their customer base. So if this is a community where they're not making a lot of money, Dove is not going to try to make a lot of money off of you. But if you can afford a little more, then they may charge a little more. And people like that. They also like the fact that they aren't cruel to animals. So they know their market. We could learn a lot from their loyalty base. Know your market. Know what makes you different and why someone would stick with you opposed to going somewhere else. These are the 7 things that make up your capability statement. What I did for you is I outlined the first 6 there so that we can actually go through what would go into those sections. This is your guide. Now, you're going to turn over that handout and you're going to write your own capability statement with me so I can help give you some support, some advice, and answer questions. And then we're going to let someone walk us through what their capability statement looks like so that we can give them some direct feedback in a visual way. I'll come around and see who needs support with their capability statement. We're going to take about 10 minutes on this. So I want to show you all an actual capability statement. Now, typically these are only 1 page. This one is a 2-pager, but it has all of the elements. Now, because they've been in business for 20 years, they are one of the largest minority-owned marketing companies in the state of Florida. Also happens to be a good friend and a soror of mine. But they have all the information that I told you about. You notice here all the information in terms of their website, their contact information, the phone number. They have right here at the top, the capability statement, your visibility team. That's what they want to be known for. Their marketing. They want you to know that if you work with them, you will be seen. Their company overview and core competencies. This is the section we were working on. You notice how they have what it is that they do in one succinct sentence, right? They have all the specific items listed here. Those are the things that you have in your list where you talked about what makes you credible, what do you provide. Then they have, we are the go-to global agency for creative, meaningful, and impact-driven storytelling. All of this is in the different sections of your capability template. Then they have their client certification affiliations that they can tell you about, their differentiators and value propositions, and their accomplishments and recognition. Now, these don't click anywhere because your capability statement is usually on an actual piece of paper, but they tell you that they have these Remember we talked about those items that vouch for your success, to say I have experience, or I have education, or I have testimonials. That's what these are, okay? Now, because this is on paper and not something that you click on, they actually have to tell you, no different than you. Same thing, these are lists of the clients that they've worked with. So if you have, maybe you didn't go to school for it, but you have a lot of clients that you've worked with, this would be a great place to put on your capability statement. You don't have to have all of this. This is the A++++. But guess what they call the last person that graduates from medical school? Doctor, all right? You just want to make sure you get the job done. The next one is how they're different. They list to you exactly what makes them stand out. Things such as they are inclusive of Hispanic, African American, Caribbean, Asian, Indigenous, LGBTQ+ populations. That makes them different. They work with everyone. Somebody might say, I want a company that works with everyone. You would go to them versus someone that has a limited market. They provide outreach services, which is different from most marketing companies. Most marketing companies, they market and that's it. They don't have a nonprofit wing. This group, not only do they provide outreach services, they also have a street team for promotions, and they focus on, in addition to your general population, faith-based outreach, nonprofit and civic group partnership, and community engagement. Again, differentiators. What makes you different? None of this came from a degree. None of this came from having thousands of years of experience. This is simply what they do that they made themselves stand out to say, if you want someone that does these things, come to us, all right? And then their accomplishments and recognition, as you can see, they've been given a lot of awards, including Business Advocate of the Year, Small Business Advocate for having been in business for 15 years, but it could be 5 years for you. Maybe someone wants to support a small business that's a startup, but that's early. We just had Give Miami Day, and I had someone call me and say, do you know someone who's been in business for 10 years or less? I want to help those early startups. And he easily donated $500 right off the cuff based on the recommendation I gave. So there are people looking for you, and you, and you, and you. They just don't know what makes you different or how to find you. A capability statement says, I'm capable, and this is why, and this is how, and I'm here, so that they know how to find you for what you bring to the table. That second sheet, which is different, which I mentioned, you don't have to have, bringing it smaller. Let's see here. Oh, it's getting bigger. Let's see. Okay, and I'll make it there we go again. Okay, let's see. This is their second page, where they wanted to make sure that their mission statement is there. That's also listed on your template, to put that so people know what you're about. Even if you have a company that is not a nonprofit, there's a mission for your company. And then your services and why somebody should choose you. That's important. Maybe they can't figure it out for all the other stuff that you had there, but you straight told them. Remember we talked about knowing what you're asking for? If someone says, I got $1 million, what are you gonna do with it? You need to be able to tell them why you need that money and what you're gonna do with it. All right, so that's just the example I wanted to make sure that we had to start with. I'm gonna go back to our presentation so that we can look at we were at the money. So let's go up to budget basics. All right, from current slide. So I want to talk about the money before we get to the grant, because every grant requires you to have a budget. And the budget is by far the most difficult section for people who are first time or limited experience grant writers. Because many times the budget has a lot of sections and terminology that most people haven't heard about. So I want to demystify, which basically means I want to make it clear and easy for you to know what's being asked of you. The first thing is direct versus indirect. That is two terms that trip people up all the time. Direct basically means these are the dollars that are going to go directly to the project or directly to the service or the product I'm providing. If you are taking that money to buy balls that you're going to use with your product, that's direct. If you're taking that money to pay someone that's working for you to provide the service, that's direct. If you are taking that money to pay the light bill because you need lights in order to provide the services, that's indirect. If the cost that you have to include services or some need that you have to have in order to provide the service, those are indirect expenses. You gotta pay the rent if you have a physical location. So many grants will allow you to include indirect costs. The federal government allows you to include up to 15%. Someone in here that knows math pretty quickly. If you have applied for $1 million grant from the government and they tell you 15% on top of that million can be given to you for indirect costs, how much additional money have you gotten on top of that?
150,000.
For $1 million? Yes, it is 150,000.
On top of?
On top of.
Okay.
Because indirect expenses take the full amount and then say this is the percentage of what you're asking for. Now, the only caveat is if there's a limit. So let's say, for instance, the grant is for up to $1 million. You're asking for 900,000. You can go up to that additional 100,000 in your indirects. So your indirects might only be 10%. Or let's say you're asking for let's say 850,000. You can get that full 100 additional 50,000 and 15% to max out at $1 million just from adding your indirect costs. And I have an example in your packet that we're going to walk through so that we can make this simple for you when you're putting together your grant. Whatever you do, always align the dollars that you're asking for to the outcomes that you're promising for your grant, okay? That is the key to a grant that's solid and that gets awarded. When your budget says, we are gonna spend every dollar doing X amount of things, even if it's employees, we're gonna pay the employees 50% of their salary is gonna come from the grant that you provide, then it's aligned to the outcome. Now, the most popular, or more, I shouldn't say popular, the most, the line items that you will see the most on most grants include personnel, because you got to have people to do the work, right? Even if it's making widgets, you got to have someone to make the widget. Supplies, that includes equipment. What are you using to make whatever it is? Or if you're providing a service, do you have to type something up? Do you have to print something off? Those are all part of your supplies, right? Your printing, etc. Other direct expenses. Now, this is industry unique. Every grant has something that your industry needs or uses that's different. People who are providing social work services have specific services that are different than people who are providing food services, right? So if you provide food services, you might have extra licensing or extra insurance requirements that other people don't have. Those are other direct. If they're funding your business and you are a restaurant business, they know that that's going to be an expense. So you put that in your other category. They're looking for that. And if you don't have it, they're going to say, how are you covering that expense? And if you say, I don't know, they don't think you're ready for the money because you don't even know what you're going to do with it. Because if they've put that money into your company and you have everything except for that, that could be the reason why you can't open your doors. Can't open your doors without that licensing. And you can't open those doors if you're going to be in a liability exposure because you don't have insurance. So make sure you have everything in your budget. Now, this last one that says plus one line justification, it may be a little misleading. This basically says for every line that you have in your budget, make sure you can justify in one sentence or a few words why you have that line there. And again, we'll see the example on the budget that I give you. You want to avoid a column that says miscellaneous. No one knows what that is. Instead of miscellaneous, use your indirect column, okay? And you want to avoid assumptions. Don't assume that they know when you put personnel what that personnel is going to do. Is this person answering the phones? Is this person making the widgets? Is this person coordinating between the person that's calling for the services and the people that are providing the services? We don't know what each person does for your company. The receptionist at your company may do something different than the receptionist at that company. So don't assume they know for any of these lines. Now let's look at an actual grant, an actual budget.
So for personnel, you have to put what each person is doing. Is that how you do that?
Yes, you put their job title. That's another way to put that. The job title is an excellent way for a one-line justification because most people can look up and see this job title usually does this. And that's tied to the Department of Labor's explanation for job titles. So they know that you're doing something around what the Department of Labor says for that title. If we look at a real one, go to your packet where it says example overall project budget. This is for a real grant. I, of course, had to change a couple of the funder names and the name of the actual company. This is a grant that I actually got for someone. So you'll see at the top, for small business grants, budgets are not as extensive as are required for nonprofits. Nonprofits are usually 2, 3, sometimes 4 pages long for their budget, okay? Because what they do is they specify within each column. So on a nonprofit, you might have personnel, and then they will list all the different kinds of personnel, and you have to justify for each one. On a small business, they just want to know in general who the personnel is. So this is more for like a small business, which is why we're using this example. Notice at the top, the program scope. Remember I said for business, you have a contract, contracts have scopes. What's the work that's being done? Here, the scope is for grant and project time span. Now, that's a generic term. So what it would have said, or what it did say, was the name of the grant project, okay? I think it was TREP, the transitional program that we wrote for. So transitional programming, because I also write for like mental health companies. And then the time span was how long it would cover it. So this grant was to cover mental health transitioning services for those who are transitioning back into the real, to the regular world, et cetera, for X amount of time. From February 1st until January 31st is what they were looking for. That is your scope. The next thing is your participants. How many people are actually going to be impacted by this grant? This one was just for 15 to 20 people. And then of course, I included the description of those people, which in this case it was teens, between 14 to 18, and their age, of course, was, as I mentioned to you, I think we also included that they were low income, which LMI stands for low to moderate income individuals. That's a very common terminology used when you have services that you're offering, even for for-profit entities. If you are a counseling company, for instance, or a company providing services to individuals, you might say LMI are the individuals, low to moderate individuals we're supporting. All righty, your funding split. This is really important because what you're saying here is for everything that we're asking for from each funder, and in this case, they may be funder 2. You've already secured a funder for funder 1 for part of these. Now you're asking them as funder 2, and for the other sources, you identify at the bottom where you're going to get that money from, right? But at the top, what you're saying is funder 1 is providing 47.7% of all of what I need. Almost half of it's coming from somewhere else. Now I'm asking you to help me with 30%. Once you've helped me with 30%, they've helped me with half, that'll leave 20% for me to come up with on my own. That's a great balance because you're not asking them for all the money. Most funders don't want to be your sole source of income. They want to be a part of your source of income. And just because you have other here doesn't mean you have to be on the hook yourself. You can have a variety of ways. You may say, I'm going to request for, donors for certain actual items and not the money. And so at the bottom where it says notes, this helps with your justification. This would be the one-liners. Your description is considered a one-liner, but if it doesn't specifically say, for instance, if you have outside expenses, then you want to include in the notes, which all budgets usually have a note section, or they'll say a budget narrative section. That's where you tell what might be a question mark so that you don't have any assumptions on your budget. So in this case, you can see the totals. The total amount for this project is $95,130. But from this funder, you're only asking for $30,000. And that's because for this funder, that was the maximum for this grant. So we maxed out that $30,000 of what we're asking for specifically. But we said to them, we know between what we've already gotten and what we're asking for that there's still going to be some monies left on the table that we need, right? That's where your notes explain. Funder 2, because that's what this was for, grant dollars. And it explains that you're prioritizing direct delivery, which says most of your money is going to go to directly what we are doing in our program. But there are some indirects, because by you saying prioritize, that means that's first, but there are some indirect expenses that we need to include. All of that is noted in the most succinct way in your notes, so you can read through and see that. And then, because we want to make sure they're aware that they're not the only people, not just from the first funder, but there's other ways that we can get money, you want to include your match plan snapshot, if that applies. If it doesn't, don't worry about it, okay? But if it applies, I wanted you all to have an example. In the case that it applies, then you want to put in where you're getting other monies. So the board said they'll give up to $500 specifically for this project. They know your board of directors are funding lots of projects, but this one in particular, they're allocating $500. Then your general operating expenses that you have in your budget and your revenue as a company, you're siphoning some of that off for this project. That's what you're going to say there. And then your employer sponsors, people who are sponsoring those who are transitioning back into the workforce, they're going to provide $2,000. And then you're also looking at micro grants, 2 micro grants, one for $1,500, one for $316. And now all of that should total the $19,746 that's left in the other. See how that works? You didn't have to provide all of that. $500 came from your board, but the rest came from other sources. And a lot of times people forget, well, what can I do with $1,500 for a micro grant? You can use that as match dollars. You can use that to vouch for, they're willing to give me $1,500. Doesn't matter if it's $1. If someone else is willing to invest, that says you have something that people should invest in. That's credible, right? Put that on there because that encourages others to want to give too. If they're giving, I can give. Questions?
So, just to be clear, the match plan snapshot is just showing who else has ever accepted.
Yes, other matches, other amounts coming in. Some grants will require a match, and in that case, you're basically going to say all the different ways that you're going to bring in the amount that you have to match. The most common match is 50%. If we give you $10,000, somebody else has to put in $10,000. So that $10,000 someone else gives can come from multiple sources. And it doesn't have to come from you at all. We could take out the $500 for a board. You might have 3 micro grants. You might have got a micro grant from Miami Foundation. You might have got a micro grant from the Bayside Foundation. You might have got a micro grant from a private donor. That's your match. Any questions? Yes, other questions?
So, when you show them, like, I received 10K from this person or group, you have to prove that?
No.
Can you show it to them on your account? Or what do you do?
So you don't have to do any of that. When you're writing for the grant, they really can't ask you for certain types of documentation until they've given you the money. Because your application is saying, we want this money from you, we can show you where we're having other monies coming in, but until you give me the money, I'm not gonna give you that documentation. Does that make sense? Because if you don't give me the money, you have my documentation, and you haven't given me anything for it. See, and usually your awards are where your contracts come in. Now that they're giving you the money, a contract is attached. In that contract, they'll say, you have to provide all this documentation. But now you're getting the money, so you're okay with providing the documentation. Basically, this is saying, you may not even have all of this. Notice I said micro grant. Did I say the micro grant was in hand? Did I say I had the micro grant? No. I just said, this is where I plan to get that money, from a micro grant. And that's how it works. So this was funded even before the micro grant came in. They just want to know, what is your plan? It's like a business plan. You don't have to have it all. You just need to have a plan for how you want to get it or how you plan to get it all. That's what they're looking for. They're happy to be a part of that plan, but they want to know that they're not the only source that you're depending on. And if your source is your customer base, have you identified who those customers are and how much they can give? That's all. It's all about planning. Other questions about the budget, because this is the one area that people are always like, I wrote the narrative, but I don't know what to do about the budget. So you got a sample budget. It's a very simplified budget. Like I said, if you're a nonprofit, it's going to be a lot more involved, but not so involved that you can't figure it out based on this. This gives you the basics, all right? And we're about to wrap up. We're coming close to the end. So you'll notice we have 2 things left. One is your grant writing starter kit, so you can actually write, and the other one is your SMART goals. And both of them were on your Are You Ready scorecard to write a grant or to have a grant. So let's go to your grant writing starter kit. This is actually the sections for a grant. And I've put here on our slide our 12-week action plan because that's going to follow it. So if you turn to the section that says your grant writing starter kit, these are all the sections that you need for your grant. So I've basically broken it down in the simplest form as to what you're going to fill in for each of these sections. Every grant will ask you for your mission statement. So you want to say that your mission is to do what? You also want to talk about who you serve and in what capacity and what do you provide. That is the most succinct way for you to say this is what we do and what we're about. The next section, your needs statement. Every grant wants to know your needs. What are you doing to solve a problem in the community? Even if it's you providing chips. Most people in the community need some way to snack quickly. So we provide a healthy snack, or we provide a snack at a lower cost, or we provide some options that they don't have. Whatever it is. Most people who live in South Florida, you know, there's a huge Caribbean influence, and a lot of them love coconut. But a lot of them want the coconut without all the additives. So that's what we provide, a healthy vegan option, a healthy option that doesn't have all the additives, that they can say that they're happy to you know, quench that need, whatever that is. Yes, what'd you say?
No, like the need for sweetness, but not too sweet.
Yes, yes, yes. Remember, when it comes to food, it's all about satisfaction. If you decide, let's say for instance, you want pasta, right? You're hungry, you want pasta, but pasta's not readily available, so you go get a burger. But you wanted pasta. Even after you ate that burger, you might still feel like, I'm not satisfied because I really wanted pasta. So if you can speak to the satisfaction of what people need in a service or food, even haircut, I wanted it this way. When we don't get exactly what we want, we still crave it. But if you can say, I can give you exactly what you want, people will continue to go back because they know they're gonna get what they want. It's the reason why sometimes we go to different restaurants and order the same food. I might not know exactly what that is and I'm hungry. I don't want a chance not being able to fulfill my appetite with something I don't know, so I'm gonna stick to what I know. Happens all the time. And it goes back to what we discussed about brand loyalty. We know there's 1,000 different types of soaps. Why do people stick with Dove? Why do they have such a loyal following? Because they know what they're gonna get every time. And it's not a whole lot, you know? We saw on the last slide where it said, keep it simple. Some people say KISS, keep it simple silly, or keep it simple stupid. At the end of the day, KIS, the first part, keep it simple is what's most important. All right, so solution overview. Every grant wants to know what solution you provide. How are you helping the community? The first part was what need does the community have? The second part is how are you meeting that need? And we just talked about that. And I gave you the fill in the blanks so you can see, of course you can add on, but at its very simplistic level, this is what they're looking for. For solution, we deliver whatever that activity is that you're delivering. It could be you're delivering an actual product, you're delivering an actual service, or whatever it is that produces what? When we give people grants, what does that produce? Funding for them to do more of what they love doing or they want to do. And as a result of that funding, now they've been able to reach 10 more customers, 100 more customers. Your output is what comes directly as a result of what you've given. The outcome is as a result of what they've done with what you're given. Now what do we see? So I gave you $100 so that you can make 100 cupcakes, right? The output is the 100 cupcakes that you gave. The outcome is we had a whole lot of happy people who were able to satisfy their desire for natural coconut cupcakes. See the difference between output and outcome? Output is what'd you put out because of what I put in. Outcome is as a result of me putting that in and you getting that out, now we see this. That's what the grants want to see. And then they want to know if you had anybody that was involved in helping you do it. That's what the partners are. That's all. Outcomes and metrics. This often trips people up. KPI, often people just say KPI. They assume people know. That means key performance indicator. It's very easy. It means what do you see as a result of what I did? What is the indicator that I said that I did what I was going to do? For instance, if you want to know if someone is on time to school, what is the indication that someone is on time to school? Well, when the teacher calls them, yeah, the handout should be there. When the teacher calls their roll call, they are always there. That indicates that they're on time, right? Or whenever the bus comes in and the kids get off the bus, they're always in that line getting off. That's an indicator. And so if you have anything to do with them showing up on time, your performance, your activity is key to that indication. That's what a key performance indicator is. What is key to demonstrating or indicating that you've done what it is that the outcome showed or the output was? What'd you say? Good work. You can say, but what is that good work? What defines good work? Grades. That's a definite indicator of good work. You see the results. That's a key performance indicator. Yep. Now, does someone want to give me an example for their company? Yes.
So in my company, we pretty much
Okay.
so styling and clothing, the majority of the clothing brands that are out there, especially for the plus size and for older or not very So we provide clothing
So what would be a key performance indicator that you're successful that way?
What I've experienced from my clients, but they'll call me or they'll message me and say, I got so many compliments, or people told me I look so good, and I had to say so many styles actually, or there's different things. They'll end up in newspapers for those different things.
Yes.
So they'll send it to me, and people will often ask me, where did you get that?
Great example. So you can easily say 8 out of 10 of our consumers tell me that they loved it or they got positive feedback or that they received compliments from my clothing. That means your key performance indicator, 80% plus, are telling you that they love what you provide. That's a key performance indicator. It indicates that your customers are satisfied. And those are your KPIs. Oh, you had another question with it?
No, I was just going to say, so I know that some of them are holding, when I'll show them, I'll give them one outfit, but I'll show them all four to make it style. I think it helps them be more creative.
And you can say that.
Confident, gave them confidence.
Okay, so when you use terms like good or confidence, adjectives always have to be justified because good or confident can mean something different to different people. So whenever you use language in your grants, always think, am I describing something? If I'm describing it, why am I describing it that way? And how does that person know that I'm describing it that way for that reason? If I say good, what does good mean? If I say confidence, what demonstrates confidence? So be specific about that. Boldness. What is boldness?
They were, usually they're more reserved to themselves, but they felt a lot more outgoing, outspoken.
Okay, so the action is they went to more events. They wear my clothing and they feel they can step out into the world. 10 out of 10 people wore my clothing to an event or reported wearing my clothing to an event. That's a key performance indicator that your clothing made people feel more bold or more confident. Any other questions or examples? Yes.
I'm sitting this 5 minutes. Mine is that I did some pie sales for the VA hospital, and because the pies were so excellent, they wanted to know what else I had to offer. But I told them I have everything to offer because I do all food, all national food. So now they gave me a Christmas event to cater because of the pie.
So that your key performance indicator is that you always generate more business after you receive a satisfied customer. 90% of your customers communicate to you that they're satisfied. That doesn't mean that only 90% are satisfied. That means that 90% of them were so satisfied that they moved to tell you about it. There you go. Quantifications help. Yes, quantifications help because they're easy to specify, but they don't have to be quantifications as long as you clarify what your description is. Yep. Helpful? Okay, good. Any other questions about that one before we go to the next?
So I guess I realized that with the they're like, hey, I have another one.
There's another one that people return. You could say percentage or you could say on average. Yep. And notice I put 3, at least 3, because you want to show in more than one way how are you successful and what indicates that success. That's your outcomes and your metrics. For nonprofits, it's done on what's called a logic model. That's a different training. But for business, it's always your key performance indicator. Yes.
So the key performance indicator is the same as the past performance results, that's on the,
On your capability statement?
yeah.
So no. It can be similar, but they're not the same because your past results on the capability statement is saying we're capable of handling your business, but your past results for your key performance indicator is just one example of how you're having success in your business. It's your key performance indicator to show this indicates we have strong performance. Any other questions? All right, let's go to the next one.
So, and you have targets beside the key performance indicators, what is that?
That's your goal. So if your goal, for instance, is to sell, going back to her clothing example, if she wants to sell 100 units within 1 month, and 90% of people are coming back to get more items, that means that she has, at least she knows she's gonna sell 90 units out of that 100 for sure. That's a given. That's a key performance indicator, that because she's got 90% coming back, that's indicating that she's successful in reaching her goal. And a bank would take that and eat that up because they know, they start calculating how much money, if we loan her, are we gonna make interest back on when she pays that loan back. Don't want to pick on you here, Joshua, but I just gave a reference to like banks and loans, and I was telling them how key performance indicators oftentimes are what banks love because they can easily quantify how much money can I make in interest. If I loan you this money, how successful are you going to be at paying it back, and what can I bank on making off of what you pay back? It's all about metrics, which is that whole section.
I work for that.
And they give loans all the time, all the time. Outcomes and metrics that will sink or save your business application, your loan application. The next one is equity and access, and it's exactly what it says here. What strategy do you use to make sure that you are giving equitable access to everyone that you serve? How are you making sure that everyone's included? Because to someone that's funding you, they're trying to think of how are you maximizing every customer you can get? How are you reaching out? Yes.
So for me, I'm a nonprofit organization. We provide services here in Overtown for the reentry population. So when they out of the beach, because our reentry population sometimes are homeless, we tend to provide services for people who are not reentry, who are homeless. So what we do is we take one day out of the week and we provide those services for at least an hour or two to those people so that they're not left out. Which we used to do it like every day. Now we have to do it when we focus on this. So
That's an excellent strategy for equity and access. And it says to a funder that you are looking for other ways to expand your base of customers, your customer base. And it tells them the plan for what you're using to do that, to expand. All of these plans can usually be quantified. I say usually because what did I say in the beginning? Very few things are always or never. Usually there's some type of, exception. So that's why I say often or most times. Yes.
So,
And I'll come to you right after.
for my styling, like the clothes are tailored towards women, female, young ladies. However, for the styling, I offer that to men and women because that's something I've been doing since I was very young.
But your equity and access doesn't have to reach all women or all sizes. You can say, this is how I'm inclusive to women who are curvy.
Yeah.
Because curvy women come in all colors, all sizes. You might say one of the ways that we are equitable and accessible is we provide the receipt in Spanish or in Haitian Creole. That's a way that you can make sure that people are being reached and seeing what they purchased. Or sometimes you could have signage that way. Any way that you are trying to make sure you include a wider audience demonstrates how you are expanding your customer base.
So like making our albums famous as well.
That's another way, that's an outstanding way. Or think about the region that you're in. Often people here say Creole or Spanish because you have a large market for that. But if you are in California, it would be Spanish and one of the Asian, like Mandarin. Right. Know your market, yes.
So I am thinking, as you're talking, how I could expand my customer base by, because my to be, have that equity and access is to make the same quality cake, but to make it more, what's the word? So it won't be custom. So it
Just
won't
the,
a plain cake maybe not gonna have that custom design or have a lot of frosting on it.
Right.
So probably like a glazed cake or something like that. So that a person who cannot afford a more custom made cake.
so you had tiered products.
Right.
Yes, that is an open market that you might not have thought about before.
Right.
Here's another one. You mentioned nonprofit. Businesses often forget that when you give, it often opens you up to receive so much more, and not just because it feels good. Let's say as a small business, you partner with a nonprofit. Let's say you're gonna provide 100 cakes. There's a grant out there, including like the grant we just talked about that we're gonna go over, that you can say, I wanna write this grant so that I can provide more of these services to this nonprofit that can't afford it. Now, you put in that grant for the at cost. You don't have to reduce your prices. If you charge $20 per cupcake, you put that in the grant. They will cover the cost so that they can have the benefit, but you still made the money. And you feel good because you benefited that nonprofit. That is a wonderful way for small businesses to generate income from doing good in the community. Partner with a nonprofit that you can provide services for free and ask someone that has grant funding or sponsorship to cover the cost. Can you give me an example of a product that you use on a regular basis, even if it's like the wall razor?
Yeah, well, definitely my wall clippers, my Andis trimmers, fabulous trimmers and stuff like that.
Okay, let's use the Andis trimmers.
Yes.
So let's say every August you spend a whole week giving free haircuts, girls and boys, styling. And that's gonna cost you $10,000 for 1 week. If Andis can put their name on that and say that we're sponsoring free haircuts, people see that and say, you know what, I have to buy clippers. I want to go with the clippers that's helping the community. But they paid the $10,000 to you, so you didn't lose any money. You were an extension for them because they don't do the haircuts, they just make the product, and you still help the community.
Because this is like something that I do already with another company, Place of Aroma, for-profit business, but they go to lot 14, do haircuts right before Thanksgiving. This can be something, I'm just kind of speaking out loud, but this can be something used to gain sponsorship
Yes.
from other, okay.
Yes.
Cool, thank you.
All right, we are over time, so I'm gonna kind of speed us up through the rest of this. I'm happy to answer more questions once we end. I do want to go over the application. Before you go, I know we've lost a few people. Is there anyone that needs the application? I do have a few copies, but also I have the electronic version that I can also send. It might be more helpful because you can print multiples if you need them. They are looking for the application to be filled out by hand, but if you want to transfer it to a Word doc and type it out and take it, that's fine too. You do have to take it back to the OBRC, which the address is there, so I'm going to go over that. But because we're on time, I just want to finish this last for the grants because that's the main reason why you're here, and that was what we built up to. And then I want to tell you what's in the SMART goal sheet because that's a take home, and then we'll go to the actual grant for those who want to stay for that. So to finish us out on your grant writing starter kit, the last three are your organizational capacity. That is, what capacity do you have for providing the service? That's your team and how long you have experience in doing it, so we know that you know what you're doing. So that's why I put that here. When you put your team in there, your partners, make sure you include the role that they play. That's very important.
I have a question. So with the, right here talking about partners and roles, because I partner up with, there's barbecue. Weekend, and I do my chicken style and pork style program. But I partner up with them. He do ribs, but I do that. And we just go out and together. So I can add that.
You definitely should add that because that increases your capacity. Instead of you having to do, let's say somebody wants the ribs and they want this dessert that you provide. It's not just on you to provide both. You can serve more people because you have more hands. It increases your capacity. And that's why it's under organizational capacity that you add your partners. Because the more partners you have, not only does your accountability increase, but also the service that you're able to provide increases. It's not all on you. And if something happens where you can't provide, they have a backup that they can go to. That's why partnering is really important. And I'll tell you one real quick in terms of partnering. I know we have a couple nonprofits. I'm doing another training specifically for nonprofits in grant writing, and I'll give you one for free. If you partner with other organizations that do similar work, you oftentimes can get way more money. An example is Nike. Have you all heard the scripture or the quote, "You have not because you ask not"? Yeah. A lot of big companies, they have the funding and they want to give, but people don't ask for what they need. So we have hundreds of organizations that do backpack giveaways, right? I'm just gonna say, let's say we had 20 different backpack giveaways. Do we need that many? Probably not. If 20 of those entities came together, or if 10 of those 20 came together and said, we're gonna write Nike and ask for $1 million, which is nothing for Nike, because it's a multi-billion-dollar company. We want $1 million for backpacks for our community. And that 1 million is gonna provide 100,000 backpacks, okay? They send the 1 million or they send 100,000 backpacks. Now you're dividing that between 10. So now, instead of trying to write a bunch of small grants to buy backpacks, you have $100,000 per nonprofit for backpacks because you came together to write one grant or one sponsorship application. And if they give you the backpacks instead, you're dividing now 10,000 quality Nike backpacks amongst 10. So all of you have 1,000 quality backpacks that might have cost you easy 10,000 or more, you have to give away for free. That you can now include in your capability, your statement saying, this is what we have, this is what we've done. Remember that listing that I showed of the people you've worked with? You can now list them, but not just you and 9 others can all list Nike there. All because you came together. That is the power in numbers, that's the power in unity. You get more, many hands make less work when you work together more. Yes?
So when you do this, what I'm doing is that I have to already
Nope. You don't have to. You could be in the works of it. You could say we're partnering. Many partnerships don't have MOUs. I always tell people they should. That's the lawyer hat coming on. An MOU is your memorandum of understanding, or LOA, a letter of agreement, something that clearly defines who's doing what. Goes back to the contracts. But that doesn't have to be in place for you all to decide you're going to partner. Any other questions about that before we finish up the last two? Sustainability is basically saying, once I have this money, how can I demonstrate to you that we're going to keep doing the good work? So after the grant, which is why it says post-grant, we sustain, meaning we keep doing what we're doing by, and I have some examples, the earned money that we're going to make from it, or another contract that we'll get as a result of having done this work from the money you gave us, or another partnership that now opened up. How are you going to keep the work going after we give you the money? And then last but not least, your budget narrative, which goes back to why we did the budget first. That justification at the bottom of your notes, that's what goes into your narrative. Funds support what? Remember I listed in there the key lines of what is supported, and these are the outcomes and these are the match dollars. It's just what's at the bottom of your budget. And that is your grant writing starter kit. It's called a starter kit because it's what you need to start your grant. Of course, you'll probably need more because every grant is unique, but this is what's in every grant. So if you have this, you can start without an issue. And then you only have to ask for or pay for help for the small pieces that you need, which decreases your cost of getting help. The bottom basically says, this is your one-page grant checklist. Before you apply for any grant, make sure you do these things. You'll notice in there you see define 3 SMART outcomes and measures. Your homework, or something to take home, is the next handouts, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I put together for you a SMART goal worksheet so that you can easily just read through and define for yourself specific SMART goals. This will be valuable, a valuable asset when you're actually writing your grant, because you're basically flushing through in your brain the goals that you have for your funding, and then you just put it together in your application. And I have a template for you on the back that you can follow and just fill in the blank. I have here a 12-week action plan just to kind of have you follow if you're looking for how can I set a goal to actually write a grant within 12 weeks. If you use these resources that I have listed here, And you start your boilerplate library, which comes directly from, I have them numbered, your 8th handout, which is your grant writing toolkit. You should have everything that you need to within the next 3 months to write your first grant. And that's all it takes. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the patience in the beginning as we got set up. And if you want to scan this QR code, you can put all of my information directly in your phone. So you scan it, you hit save, you'll have all of my information directly in your phone. It'll have my direct phone number and tell you what I do, and a picture. Remember in the beginning I told you this grant is going to be for any business that is registered in Overtown or who operates in Overtown. But operation can include if a great percentage of your customers come from Overtown, that's also considered operating in Overtown. So if you have a strong base of people that use your services from Overtown going to you, then you can say we benefit the Overtown community as well. Yes.
Quick. Business not registered in Overtown. I do business through my school in Overtown.
Then you qualify.
Excellent.
Yep. You just have to say in the application how you benefit Overtown, which if you've done your capability and all that, the wheel should already be turning by how you connect to. Alrighty, so that's that. I'm just gonna go quickly through the application so that everyone can see it. This is the full application. As you can see, it's only 5 pages and really it's only 4.5. If you want me to email it to you, which I think is the best way, because if you make a mistake, you can reprint it yourself. I'm happy to do so. When you turn it in, it will be numbered because they're approving them if it is approved in the order that they're received. The open date was Wednesday, which was the 19th of November. There is no close date because it's going to be available until funds are available, as long as funds are available. They are planning to send out checks for these dollars starting December 15th, and they will continue issuing checks until December 31st. Their goal is to expend all of the money before December 31st. What'd you say? Okay, all righty. Also, because most people are asking, well, how much do they have to give? They've allocated $250,000 for this initiative, which is fantastic since they're giving up to $5,000 per applicant. All right. What'd you say? I did. Up to 5,000. And you can actually, as long as you can justify what you would use the 5,000 for, it's not difficult. They've allocated, they've set aside expecting that the application will be at 5,000, and if it doesn't, they'll subtract that and put that back into the pool. So more than the max for 5,000 can possibly get the grant, but they're setting 5,000 as the threshold. It's because you've only requested a portion. It's going off of your request up to 5,000. Yes, so because they're setting it at 5,000 per person and they have 250,000 to give, they know that they're going to give at least 50 businesses 5,000. But for every business that requests less than 5,000, that's money that can be set aside for more than 50. So let's say you have 2 businesses that only require 2,500. Now we know another business can get up to 5,000 because of that. But it's a first come, first served basis. Yes.
So in general, grant writing, can you, let's say in this case, 5,000, they're giving up to 5,000. What if what you need it for is more than 5,000? Is that recommended to do, or you need to scale back?
No, that's fine as long as the portion that they're covering, you can demonstrate how that's still going to benefit the community. They want to know that if I give you 5,000 and you need 10,000, where are you planning to get the other 5,000 from, and how is that? Yes, yep, the same way I outlined. Any other questions? I know, right? Okay, so I'm gonna, like I said, this part is the bonus. So if you can't stay, that's fine. If you scanned the QR code that I gave you, my email is there. All you have to do is email me and I will reply back with the application. All right? So this first part is simply just explaining to you the program overview, telling you that Southeast Overtown Park West Community Development is where the money is coming from. Their focus, remember we talked about in the beginning, to align the focus, they're looking to focus on economic revitalization, job creation, neighborhood development, and program direct funding. So if a neighborhood looks torn down, it's not really, there's a lot of blight, it's not, it might need beautification. If you have a garden service, could that be neighborhood development? Yes. Absolutely. If you're an artist, could that be neighborhood development? Yes. Absolutely. Let's say, for instance, you are trying to sell, chips in the community, okay? If your chips can be used as a fundraiser, that could be job creation or economic revitalization. Same for cakes or pies, or if whatever your product is can be used as a fundraiser, which means that you would increase the amount so that when they sell, you subtract whatever you require, and then whatever's left, they get the overage. Most people will take that and run with it because they can make money from selling something that you've created. All right? So think about how you can creatively align with the focus that they have for what you're offering the community. All right? They also tell you that this is serving as an instrument in doing what they're setting aside the money for, which is strengthening the economic fabric of the community, enabling businesses to thrive, enabling businesses to thrive, enabling businesses to thrive. That right there aligns with what you're trying to do. You're trying to help your business thrive, because if you have money, you can provide more support to others in the community that don't have money. That's a perfect way to say that we're in alignment with your focus, by benefiting yourself as well. And then of course it's telling you here that the money is coming from tax dollars. All right. Eligibility. Oh, let's not do that again. All right, eligibility. To qualify is 3 things, and that's why I wanted to clarify, because a lot of people will say, well, I'm not really in that district. The first one is that you must be located within the CRA boundaries, but there's flexibility. If what you're providing falls within the boundaries, you also qualify. The second thing is that you have to have a valid City of Miami business license. That's the...
Explain it again, what you're providing.
If what you're providing supports the community in Overtown, then you also qualify for being located. Your service is provided in the community. You just have to explain that.
You're not actually located.
Right, as long as you are a Miami resident.
You're aligned with their vision.
Yes. Yes. So let's say you sell cakes in the community. You are trying to offer fundraisers for the schools or for the businesses in the community to raise funding, or the associations. You need this grant so that you can offer a fundraising channel or opportunity for people in the community. That's the way that you can serve the community. And then the last one here, the second one, the valid City of Miami business license, that's the business tax receipt, the BTR that I referred to earlier. You have to have that. You can go get it now if you need it, and then put that in, and you can write it off in the grant. And then the last one is that you have to be in good standing with local, state, federal regulations and tax compliance. This is basically if you're registered on SunBiz, and if you needed an EIN, some businesses don't need an EIN. As long as you're in good standing, meaning you're not being sanctioned by the state or by the county, then you're in good standing, as long as you're registered. So if you meet those are very minimal eligibility requirements. If you meet those, you can apply for up to $5,000. They are going to give priority to minority-owned, women-owned, and veteran-owned businesses. They also are going to give priority to businesses that demonstrate job creation or community impact. Do you remember one of the community impacts that everybody qualifies for?
Job creation.
Yes, but it was one thing in particular that I said. By enabling businesses to thrive. You want your business to thrive. And so if you want your business to thrive, then job creation and community impact. Because if you thrive, you can hire other people. That's for eligibility. So when you start answering, they did that again. I know, right? When you start going into your tiers, this is where it says it shouldn't exceed 5,000, because we know that's the maximum. And you'll see we're going to go through this very quickly. This is what you can use it for. Notice it says, and others. And others. The first ones are basically if you have a physical location. The and others is the catch-all for everything else. And you can use it for 3 months rent. So if you want to write off your last 3 months of rent, you can use the $5,000 for that. All you need is a copy of your lease and your receipts that you paid. That's easy. That's a giveaway. Oh, yes.
In other words, I don't have to be delinquent on 3 months. I can put 3 months that's already paid for.
Yes. Yes. 3 months that you already paid for. Now, if you know you're going to need help moving forward, let's say after the holidays you have a low season, you can also say, I'm going to need 3 months rent moving forward, as long as you show that you have a lease and you can show a receipt to demonstrate that this is what you've been paying. And then you can also specify why that is a hardship. Maybe sales are very low or etc. You can also use it for ahead. And that goes back to when we were talking, you were there yesterday when I was talking to Mr. Shiverton, who was in charge of reviewing the grants, just because I wanted to make sure I gave you all the accurate information. One of the things he said is the funding can be used for future expenses. You just have to show, which is different for rent, but you have to show that you have 3 quotes for those expenses and why you chose the one you went with. You don't even have to go with the lowest. You just have to be able to justify why you made the choice for that one out of 3. So let's say you want to use the money, going to your example, you want to use the money to buy more barber equipment so that you can hire somebody who may not have the resources to pay for their own equipment. And then you're going to take maybe a small portion out of your check to over the cost or whatever. You don't even have to go that deep. You can say, I want to buy this much equipment for people who don't have the skills that I can train, that they can finish my school, because you're starting a school, and then they can go off with their own equipment. I need you to cover the costs so that I can grow as a business to do that and help the community, right? And so you haven't purchased anything yet. You just went and got different quotes for what you're planning to purchase. Maybe one package is $4,500, another one is $4,800, another one is $5,000 exactly. You wanted to go with the $5,000 because it offers more quality, whatever. You just have to say that. I chose to go with the highest one because even though it's more for a reason. It's going to last them longer. Bada bing, bada bam. Yes.
So with this application, I just hadn't read through.
No, that's okay.
You have to provide estimates?
If it's something that you haven't paid for.
Gotcha.
So it can reimburse what you've paid for, or it can pay for something that you haven't just yet.
And are they paying them directly, or are they paying you and you just got to be able to?
They're paying you, and you just have to, you don't even, no, you don't.
Oh, really?
You don't have to give receipts after the fact. You get the money, you don't have to bring back receipts. If it's reimbursed, so let me explain. Let's say it's reimbursed. You have to provide receipts because you're asking for money based on what you paid. If it's not reimbursed, let's say you're asking for money because you've gotten quotes. They give you the $5,000. You don't have to then come back and show receipts what you used the $5,000 for. They gave it to you based on the quotes that you provided for that reason. They're not going to chase behind everybody to see, did you use it for that? That's why they need you to justify what you're going to use it for.
Okay.
Yes.
Every single grant, you give the quotes. At the same time, you must show when and show in your bank account that we spent such and such.
Nope, not for this one. That's why this is one of the easiest grants for small businesses. Because you're just justifying what you're going to use the money for. Once it's yours, then you do what you say you're going to do with it. Prayerfully, you wouldn't do something different. But they're not chasing behind to see, because it's $5,000, which for a small business is helpful. But in the larger scheme of a CRA, it's not right. Yes. They have a lot more requirements, even the paperwork. You have to provide more documents. This is easier than most of the mom and pop grants. Yeah. I'll tell you, one of the most challenging grants for small businesses would be probably MDEAT, not because it's a hard grant, but because it's time consuming. They require about, I think it's 12 to 15 different items on the A through on the alphabet, yeah. So, you really have to have your business plan, you have to have a capability statement. There's several things that you need. So that takes more time to write, and you really have to spend time with it to figure out what you want to put in. This doesn't require all that. Here's the application and approval process. Uh-oh, let me go here. This is what I was telling you. First come, first serve. Your application must be hand delivered to the Overtown Business Resource Center. It's right up the street, 1490 Northwest 3rd, Suite 106. You cannot miss it. It's right next to that grocery store. That is it Pro-Choice, Price Choice. Yes, it's right next door. I mean, it's 3 minutes from here. You get the application, you take it back. They wanted you to kind of get the application from them in hand. That's how they've been doing most businesses, but they did send it out electronically. So if you have it electronically, you still have to print it out when you're done. You can type it or you can write it, it doesn't matter. As long as you have those few little documents that they said here, depending on what you're asking for money for. If you're asking for reimbursement, you just need to attach the receipts. If you're asking for future, you're gonna need to attach quotes. And of course, you're gonna have to have your SunBiz information, but that's it. Then they're gonna check to see if you have SunBiz. So they will not deny someone that has filled out a complete application that doesn't have their SunBiz if they can look it up. They'll look it up for you because they really wanna help businesses in the community. They'll only take applications Tuesday through Thursday from 10 to 4. That's important because if you go on a Friday and I'm not taking it and you don't make it back, and they already hit 50 or however many numbers, you can lose out. So make sure you remember Tuesday through Thursday, 10 to 4, okay? It says on a rolling basis. One thing that it did say is that, what did it say?
When we got the check.
Oh, they're gonna be issuing them from December 15th until December 31st. Super quick turnaround, yes. Very, very fast turnaround. Okay, just want to make sure we hit everything there. The executive director is the one that's going to be doing the reviews. That's Mr. Shiverton, Mr. David Shiverton, over at the OBRC. Going down. Here's the actual application. It's basically your legal information that we already talked about for your capability statement. Try to go down. Oh, it's going a little.
Want to try this right here? The stylus?
Oh, thank you. That would be so helpful, right? Look at that. Okay, thank you. All right, so all your basic information, if you're doing business under a different name than is registered, just put your DBA, doing business as. Everything that's here is basic. You don't have to even have a website. You don't have to have social media. Notice it says if applicable. They know that some businesses don't need that to do what they're doing. There's a business over there that does gas. When people, he partners with the gas company, so if someone is staying in a house that have both the gas hookup and the electric hookup, they could save money if they went for gas for like their stove, etc. So the gas company, they're covering the cost of switching people over to gas versus using the electric. And then he comes in and his company just does all the underground work. And that's how he gets the payment. So basically they're issuing the contract to his company. He don't need a website. He's not working with people on an everyday basis. His customer is the gas company, right? And they tell him the houses, he just shows up at the house. He can still get the 5,000. He don't need social media unless he wants to say to the community what he's doing, that, you know, maybe portion of the money is going to some good, but he doesn't need that to get this grant. Alrighty, now, here's the stuff that I was telling you all about in the training, where it says the NACES code, if it doesn't apply to you, you don't use it on a regular basis, then you probably won't know what your NACES code is. If you look in the handouts that I gave you, I specified exactly what NACES stand for. If you Google NACES code 4 and put what your business does, it will list the codes out for you. And you just put them right on the application. They want to know if you are a sole proprietorship. Remember, sole proprietorships don't even have to have EINs and paperwork. You're just basically saying you just went into business for yourself, right? And you registered online. Partnership, LLC, corporation, or nonprofit, you qualify. They do want to know if you are located within the boundary, but not being located in the boundary is not a reason for you not to get it as long as you serve people in the boundary. So that was key. Say it again. It depends really on what you're doing. So like for your clothing, you can say we have X amount of sales that come from Overtown, so that this is a large market for us. Let's say, for instance, 60% or we are targeting Overtown so that we can enhance the image of those who are looking for jobs, job creation. And so we want to expand to reach more people in that market, and this funding would help us do that. All right. Let's see. It's just reminding you again that it's tax increment funding, meaning it's just tax dollars that are funding it. And then your personal information as the owner. If you're the only owner, it's 100%. If it's two of you, is it 50-50, 30-70, 20-80, whatever that breakdown is. And then here, this is where you put your request. I always tell people to, if you can, attach a separate sheet, but if you can't, putting it here and writing on the back is acceptable, but you're basically answering these questions, not very many questions. If you went through what we did today in the training, you should have enough information to fill out these questions. Your first thing, why are you requesting the money at what amount? So, request grant amount, $3,000, and you tell what you're doing using that $3,000 for. Now remember, when you tell what you're doing it for, make sure you write it in a way that'll help you with the next question, which is describe the intended use. What are you using this money for? Remember the alignment. How is it benefiting the community? That's what you're putting here. And then they ask you, which was one of the things that I mentioned before, the third question is, how will the grant fund support your business operation or growth? I want to have something that I can use to hire staff. I want to have something I can use to benefit to be a fundraiser. You know, how is this going to grow you? Because now I can add another wing to my company. I can do fundraising now for my business. Or I can provide more nonprofit types of services, or I can partner with more nonprofits. How is this going to help you grow or scale your business, do more business? And I think that's the end of the application. Yes, that's it.
That's it?
Yep. Wow. Then you have your checklist. These are the documents. Your BTR, which we talked about, your business tax receipt. Your EIN, if you have it. If you don't have it, you can put not applicable. Your driver's license or state ID, because every owner has to have that. They have to turn that into the CRA when they give you the money. Your proof of business location, a lease, utility bill, or if you do business there, you just have to specify, write a statement saying this is how I do business there. I always tell people when you write statements, go to the bank and get it notarized. It just makes it more official, whatever statement that is. And you can get the notarization for free at whatever bank you go to. All banks provide that. Your completed W-9 form, you can pull that right off the internet. It's just a W-9. They have to have that to issue the check. And then lastly, proof of eligible business expenditures. Now, if you're not asking for reimbursement, you don't need that. You're asking for monies to come in. But if you do want reimbursement, which I always say a mix is good. We need money to reimburse some of these expenses, and we need money for new. You know, or reimbursement is a pretty solid one too. Think about the last 3 months of expenses you have. That's an easy write-off that they would now give you the money back for. Maybe you bought paper, maybe you bought a bunch of office supplies, maybe you had to buy new chairs, whatever you had to get in the last 3 months, you can put the receipts there. If you don't have the receipts, go back to the company, whomever you got them from, and ask for a receipt and put it here and get your money back. Simple as that. And then you certify by signing and dating. Uh-oh. Oh. Okay. By signing and dating and putting your title as a CEO and founder, or CEO, whatever title you use. Some people use manager based on what's on SunBiz.
So do you?
Yeah.
Well, as you just said, SunBiz. So if on SunBiz your title is manager, that's what you put?
No, you can put CEO. But some people use whatever they put on SunBiz. I'm saying that's okay. So if you put manager, SunBiz manager, whatever, that's fine too. They just want to know whatever you're calling yourself. Sign it, print it, put your title, date it, turn it in. This is easy enough that you all should be able to get this done in the next couple of days. By the time when Thanksgiving break ends, because they're closed next week, when it ends, you all should be the first person on Tuesday, which is December 1st, turning those applications. Some of you all, they close at 4, you might have time today. So go ahead and get it done.
It says Monday on Tuesday, Thursday.
Yes, it is. But a little birdie told me that they are taking some today.
Oh, okay.
So if you go up, You can also call the OBRC, and I can give you that number in case anybody has questions. I'll give you that number right now.
But they're closed all week, you said next Friday.
Yes, they're closed all week. Their number is 786 616 8997. 786. That's the office. 616 8997. Yep, and just call them and say, I have the application, I want to bring it. It says Tuesday to Thursday, can you take it today? We're here, go ahead and bring it in. Yep. That's it. Thank you for hanging out for the last part. Yes. Hello, and thank you for attending our training today. Here at Hopewell Global, we specialize in serving those who serve others. So, if we could be of service to you with your grant writing or contract proposal writing needs, we would be happy to help. We also specialize in strategic planning, development, and training. And so, if you're not quite grant ready or not quite ready to step into that proposal, we will be here to help serve you in that capacity as well. I can be reached at 786-375-0573. 786-375-0573. Or by email. You can email me directly at Nikki@hopewell-global.com. Again, that's Nikki, Nikki @hopewell-global.com. I look forward to hearing from you.